Good evening and welcome to today's Tropics for July 8th, 2020. Please note I'm not a meteorologist and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storm I'm talking about. And for any decision making, please consult the National Hurricane Center or your local officials. Today I'm looking at Invest 98L. I think you can tell even by just looking at it, it's not very well organized. It's just a broad low pressure here, and it looks like they'll continue for a little while as this low pressure tries to get dragged out by this convection, which is causing some surface convergence and tends to attract these sort of low pressure systems in. But as you see, this low pressure area and its rotation does get into this convective area here, and that means that any mesovortices or that get into here start to amplify because the rising air means that that vortex is stretched vertically. That means it has to contract, and it's basically forced to spin faster. And in fact, we are seeing that right now. There's a small or tiny mesovortex right here. Oops, sorry about that. The mesovortex right here that is getting spit out from the convection, and that's not obviously not going to develop or anything, but this is basically a process we're probably going to see continue and maybe not even end. You might see a messy structure, possibly, if this can't get organized that quickly. But that is generally what we're seeing with this asymmetric type of look that is currently occurring at the moment. As I usually say, water vapor tends to be, or the water vapor enhancement tends to be a good thing to look at to diagnose what's going around around a storm. And you can see that's true here. There is a very large trough to the north here that isn't doing too much right now to 98L. It might be dragging a bit to the east, but it's not going to have it's not going to pick it up or something and move it away from the coast. 98L is a bit too far to the south right now to get affected by that sort of thing. What is affecting it right now is this upper trough that's to the west of it, and what that is doing is it is amplifying this upper ridge along with this convection here, and that means it is fending off a lot of shear, which might be a good thing for 98L in the future. And it doesn't look like shear will be a very big factor in the development of 98L. When a storm like 98L is close to the coast, another good thing to look at along with satellite for observations is the radar, because this can show you some inner core stuff that you might not be able to see with satellite imagery, maybe because it's from space and has to look through clouds, and sometimes you can't see the low level circulation through those clouds that get in the way of that. And indeed, this does agree with what we're seeing, because a lot of the that low level rotation is not really under that convection. So you see, yes, a very broad low level rotation, and you do see this small, little more concentrated rotation here, and that is the mesovortex that I was remarking on earlier that is on visible imagery. So that will continue to move on northwest and eventually to the west, and definitely won't be anything that develops, but yeah, it is something we'll probably see a lot more of in the next day or two. Taking a look at the latest 18Z GFS run, you can basically see that the current look with regards to shear is going to continue, as you have that upper trough that is amplifying this upper ridge looks to continue for the next couple of days. So it looks like 98L won't have to deal with that much shear. The main issue will be how close it is to land, and unfortunately relying on one model run isn't too wise to look at just one and take it verbatim, because in this sort of situation you're going to have possibility where it moves slightly east, and that would mean it would be stronger and slightly west, and obviously be weaker over land. So this is kind of splitting the middle. It's near land, but slightly offshore. And so GFS does keep this weak. So we'll have to see how this verifies. If it ends up tracking a bit more to the east, then we might be able to throw out the GFS output and favor a stronger storm. But looking at shear alone, it doesn't look all that unfavorable until it's already inland and can't strengthen anyway. The next thing to look at is the steering, and this is the mid-levels here, and you can see that 98L itself is right here, and that expansive trough is currently over it, but not really having a huge effect, except for maybe some weak easterly, weak push to the east. Now what's going to happen is this ridge is going to start building in over it, and you're going to have the ridge to the east start to strengthen a bit, and that means basically the eastward progression is going to be arrested because it can't. So a storm can't just run into a ridge, so it's going to move to the north instead. And you see it develops it on the east side. That's most likely. You're probably going to have a strong mesovortex rotate into convection and strengthen, and possibly become a more dominant part of the circulation. And that's probably what we're going to have a tropical or even subtropical cyclone end up forming. But it's hard to tell right now when that will be. And as the time goes on, you can see that it still can't move any more eastward because of the ridge. But you also have a trough coming in from the Midwest, and as it gets near the Mid-Atlantic, and what GFS does is pretty much makes landfall here, you have this trough turning a bit more to positively tilted. So that again means that it's not going to feel more south flow. It's going to feel more southerly flow. So it's going to continue moving generally north until it makes landfall, and then around the time it hits 45 degrees north, it's probably going to do what it usually does at that latitude and get caught up in the westerlies. Another thing to note is no matter how favorably things are going to or end up going for 98L, it is not going to become a very strong system like a hurricane or anything. So it is going to remain a weak storm, but that, even though it's going to likely be at most a tropical storm, that doesn't mean you should let your guard down. That there are still going to be dangers with it, as you going to see here. And but basically, here's a precipitable water, and this is basically if you compress all the water that's in the atmosphere into basically one little, say, rain gauge or something like that. That's how much water you're going to have. And you can see that there's about 2 inches of that in the Carolinas right now, and that is very moist tropical air. And I think you can kind of see the theme that's going to happen. That's heavy rain, and you see that with a lot of weak tropical systems as they bring very warm tropical air that rains down heavily on areas and causes flooding and sometimes gusty winds from the thunderstorms that they spawn. But you can see as it moves north, you can see even in the mid-Atlantic here, it gets very tropical air with values even up to almost 2.5 inches of precipitable water at a time. So you're likely going to have heavy rain and thunderstorms happen. And something curious, it does remain generally asymmetrical, so it may almost look a bit subtropical at that point, as the National Hurricane Center says it might be a subtropical cyclone. But anyway, you can see that eventually pretty much the entire northeast, or not entire northeast, but this area of northeast, especially near the coast, is going to be enveloped in very moist tropical air. So as a result, you're going to have a lot more thunderstorms trying to get going there. And with thunderstorms, you're going to also have possibly isolated heavy amounts of rain that cause flooding. And also, those are going to try to bring down gusts from more mid-level air. So that means you're going to have strong gusts and thunderstorms, but definitely the main issue seems to be rain that might cause some flooding in areas. Otherwise, the global tropics aren't actually all that active. It's just two tropicals, or a tropical storm and another invest in the East Pacific that neither of which are going to affect land. So it's just 98L that is going to affect land in the next few days. But otherwise, if you have any questions or comments about my video, please let me know. And thanks for watching.